Hi, I'm Mike Miller. Hope you're having a great day. The Other Side was created to bring talented people to you to share their stories. My guest today is a guy that I met when I was over around the Louisiana Tech area, and he, after studying music there, went to Nashville and pursued a career in publishing and songwriting. And I'm really glad to have Tommy Polk here today. Hope you enjoy his stories. Hi, I'm Mike Miller. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks so much for checking out the shows that I do. I'm really excited to have Tommy Polk here today. Tommy, I appreciate it very much.
Oh, it's good to be here. I appreciate you inviting me.
So we had met over at Louisiana Tech back in the day, and then I'll always remember how you used to come out to my place, and I had a Polaris drum set and an upright piano, and you would come out there and play piano, and we had some great jams, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you went from there and went to Claire, Clairview and studied Texas swing for a while.
Claremore Junior College
Claremore.
at the Hank Thompson School of Countrypolitan Music in Claremore, Oklahoma,
Okay.
about 50 miles north of Tulsa.
Yeah.
And I studied Western swing guitar and piano. I studied from about an 80-year-old accordion teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I spent the days in the auditorium where the only baby grand piano was, and it was unair conditioned, and it was the summer in Oklahoma, and I would just leave pools of sweat under me at the end of rehearsing each day.
Yeah. And then you went to Nashville from there.
Yeah, while I was in Oklahoma, I ran into a guy named Eric Tarleton, who wound up being the sound guy for John Prine
Really?
for decades. And he had passed through Nashville from Greenville, South Carolina, coming out to Oklahoma. And he told me that his car broke down in Nashville and that he had friends that went to school there and they had a recording studio. I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." And he went out to his VW and brought in this wet, wrinkled brochure of Turnley Studio at Belmont College.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left when my schooling was over at Claremore. I left and drove straight to Nashville. I walked in the downstairs into the studio. It was cold. It just felt so good from that Oklahoma heat.
And
It
this was
was
around
dim.
New Year.
Huh?
It was New Year's Eve.
No, this was the end of summer.
Oh, okay.
And I drove over to look at the studio, and I realized when I saw the VU lights and the tape recorders and the nice instruments in the studio, this is where I needed to be.
Yeah.
So I went back to Louisiana Tech and loaded up everything I had and moved it home to Nashville. And on New Year's Eve of that year, I drove up to Nashville with another friend of mine, Kenny Jones. We had a 2-car caravan going up there with our guitars and our toothbrushes. And that's how we got there around midnight on New Year's Eve. Well, it was New Year's Day.
Yeah. I remember Kenny when you invited me down to that song seminar you had. Was that 2010?
Probably so. I had 4 of them. So
Four.
I'm not sure which one that you came to.
Yeah. Odie Blackman and
Yeah.
Kenny and his wife Ashley, who had released "Gimme Shelter."
Well, that was Kenny Greenberg.
Oh,
That was
okay.
Kenny Greenberg. He's
Oh,
a Nashville guitar player, producer, songwriter. Kenny Jones is who I moved up with
oh, okay.
to Nashville. And he got Patty Loveless her start.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you went up there and became involved with the publishing companies?
Well, I went up there, became involved with the studio at Belmont.
Yeah.
I befriended all the engineers who needed time in the studio. And then I built up this core of musicians who would work with me, whether it was at 2 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, when I could get the engineer in the studio time to go in and record my demos.
Yeah.
And then I would take the demos up and down Music Row to play for professional managers, as they were called,
Yeah.
and get input from them. And I did that for a few years, but I would get differing um, opinions on my songs from differing professional managers.
Yeah.
And these weren't necessarily songwriters, they were gatekeepers more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided if I wanted true professional input, I needed to put myself around true professional songwriters.
Yeah.
And I started looking for jobs in a publishing company where I could get to know songwriters and ask questions
Yeah.
about the craft of songwriting. And I never could get into this one company. And I tried every time I called, I was given the guy named Sam Hogan, who had many hits, but he was never in the office.
Yeah.
So every time I would call, I couldn't get to him. And of course, he never called me back. So I was going to class one day, and Leanne Walker, who became a very well-known attorney up in Missouri, she said, "Did you hear they have an opening at Pickle for a tape copy guy?" And Pickle's where I've been trying to get in for 2 years.
Really?
So I ran to a payphone. They still had payphones back then. And I called and I said, "I'm calling about the tape copy guy, the tape copy job." And it was Susan Gann who answered the phone. And she said, "I'm sorry, we filled that job." And I just thanked her, and I was walking back to class, and I said, "I can't give up this easy." So I went back to the payphone. I said, "I've been trying to get in Pickle for 2 years. And
That's
every
it.
time I've called, I've been unsuccessful. I just want to come in. I know you've given the job to somebody. Just let me get in and talk to somebody there." And I got in and talked to Anita. And Anita was married to Sam Hogan.
Oh.
So I told her about my efforts, and she laughed about it, realizing that there's no way I could ever get in touch with Sam Hogan because he
Yeah.
just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so she interviewed me anyway. And she asked if
Good.
I was a songwriter. I said, "No way. I'm interested in publishing. I don't care a thing about songwriting. I want to learn publishing." Of course, that was a big lie, but I was saying whatever I could to get in that door. And I was hired, given a key to the burglar alarm in the door that day. I
Yeah.
was given 3 hours on Tuesday afternoon and 3 on Thursday afternoon, and I was there probably 60 hours a week,
Oh, really?
but paid for about 6 of them.
Yeah.
And I just learned the catalog. I met all the writers. I studied their songs. I asked them questions about their songs. I developed relationships with them
Mm-hmm.
and eventually wrote with some of them. I was mentored by Ralph Murphy, who has great blogs on YouTube
Oh, really?
called Murphy's Law of Songwriting.
Hmm.
And he came down to one of the songwriting workshops too, but he's very good. And so that's how I got in the door. And I was behind that door for 9 years. And I worked my way up from 6 hours a week to probably full time within a month.
Oh,
They
really?
they saw how eager I was and how much I was there anyway. And within 2 years, I was made professional manager, one of these people that I tried to avoid going to see. But it allowed me an opportunity to um, meet with more writers.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, they let me be a song plugger there. It gave me an American Express. And Ralph said, "Here, take it, use it, make all the mistakes you can, but bring us home some cuts." And
What
after a year or two of that,
what does that word mean, plugger?
song plugger, you plug songs into situations where that copyright is exploited.
Okay.
You go to record labels, A&R people, artist management, artists, producers, any way you can get songs placed is
Hmm.
where you plug the song into the system.
Okay.
And so after I became a song plugger, I was eventually given the opportunity to sign my first writer. Now, Picklick had hit after hit after hit.
Really?
It was owned by Roger Cook and Ralph Murphy, and Bobby Wood wrote there. They had Talking in Your Sleep and Half the Way. Why have you left the one you left me for? I Believe
Oh,
in
yeah.
You. I
Yeah.
mean, just huge, huge hits. And before Roger even got there, he wrote Lone Cool Woman in a Black Dress. I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing. Here
Oh, really?
Comes That Rainy Day Feeling Again. You Got Your Troubles, I Got Mine. I mean, the hits were all over this place,
Yeah.
and they had never paid a writer a drop.
Really?
But they gave me a couple of years to find the writer. And I found the writer within the first year, but it took another year for me to convince them to give them $250 a week to write songs because they had just never done that.
Now, is that where you worked with Paul Nelson?
Yes, that is Paul Nelson who I signed. And he was there for 3 years. His term was coming up, and he wanted a raise to 350. And he had guts. He had, um, let's see, 18 Wheels and a Dozen Roses,
My.
American Faces, um, other songs were cut. They
Yeah.
escape me now. But anyway, he was asking for $350 a week. And I asked my boss, Ralph, I said, can we give it to him? And he said, well, yes, we can. Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but Picklick was going through a co-venture with Screen Gems, Cold Gems music.
Oh, really?
So when it was presented to them, whether they could give Paul 350 a week, they said, no, you can't do it. And Ralph told me that, and I said, okay. I've told Paul, we said 350 a week. He has redone his life around that, and I can't stand in the way of him getting him 350, even if we lose him. So I phoned every publisher I knew. I said, I've got the best writer in town. You can have him for only 350 a week. I hate to see him go, but well, we got him a deal. Juan Contrare at Larry Butler Music. Larry produced all the Kenny Rogers big hits and things like that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Signed him for 350. Well, as it turns out, you know, um, Paul's songwriting career was just incredible. And for over 8 years, every single week, he had a song on the charts. 8 years. And most of them was at the top of the charts.
So now he was making this 350 a week, but then he was making his royalties also on top.
Right.
Yeah.
But by the time he sold his catalog, his own personal publishing catalog, he sold it for $12 million.
Boy, that's some money
Yeah.
after surviving on 350 a week for a long time.
Yeah. Well, he survived on 250 a week for a long time before that.
Yeah. It's an interesting business for sure. You then you got hooked up with David Ball down the road, and
Yeah, I was after I left song plugging at Picklick, I signed with Warner Chapel Music, and I was there for 4 years. And the last year I was there, a friend of mine, Blake Chansey, called and asked if I'd write with a new guy. And I said, yeah, I'll be happy to. Because I had John Briggs call me from ASCAP one day and said, would you write with a new guy? I said, man, my plate's full. I'm writing with Joe Diffie and all these other guys. I just can't fit another new one into my thing. Well, it turned out to be Alan Jackson that I had turned down.
really,
And I'd never turned down anyone after that.
yeah.
So when Blake called and asked me about David Ball, I said yes, and asked what he wanted. He said, honky tonk. I said, okay. So Dave and I wrote well over 100 songs together. And
That's amazing.
put ourselves through what I call co-write college, and um, I had 4 on his first record,
That's great.
3 on his second, and 2 singles off the first one.
That's really good.
So
I saw
it
him
was,
once in Dallas. I really like the way he performs.
yeah, he does real good. Still tours a lot. I saw him this past fall in Clarksdale, Mississippi, where he came to play. It was the 25th anniversary of his Thinking Problem CD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was good to see him and visit with him, hear him
Yeah.
play.
So you have a place in Clarksdale, Mississippi now.
Well, I did. I
Oh,
moved a sharecropper shack to my cousin's place there to have a place to go write songs in the cradle of the blues. And I
yeah,
used it with money that I'd made from David Ball.
yeah.
And um, I created this little shack, moved it 8 miles, plopped it down, put in plumbing, air conditioning, electric, and named it Shack Up Inn. Well, then Bill Talbot and James Butler down there, who were already there, decided they wanted to move in a second shack to rent out to people. Well, the Shack Up Inn grew and grew and grew, and now it's just this huge, successful international blues destination. I sold my shares long ago.
Oh, really?
And I have 3 places in Natchez, and I'm in one of them now. And kind of still in the hospitality game for 20 plus years now.
That's good. You've done a lot for the community.
Well, I like to think I have. I think I'm a good ambassador.
You are. That's a nice area down there. I wish I lived closer and could make it down there sometime.
Yeah. Are you close to Commerce, Texas?
No, we're about 20 miles north of Dallas, basically.
Okay.
Denton, yeah.
Okay.
It's really grown a lot around here for sure.
Well, where is Commerce, Texas?
Commerce is, I've been through there. I think that's down close to Texas A&M, maybe.
Okay.
Right? I'm just not
Well,
sure.
I have a friend that I wrote with a whole lot up in Nashville, and he lives in Commerce now.
Oh,
And
really?
he
Yeah.
just opened a music store. He tours with Billy Bob Thornton all over the
Oh,
place. He toured with Marty Stewart.
oh, yeah.
Could probably touch base with him about interviewing him. His name is Brad Davis. You can find him on my Facebook page.
I appreciate that. I'll definitely do that. So how has the plague really affected the operations in Nashville and the songwriting world, you think?
How has COVID?
Yeah, it just,
Um, well, I don't know. Most of the people I was in business with up there are not really part of it anymore, whether by attrition or retiring or just being phased out. There's still people active and still people making money, but most of the songwriting, I think, is done by Zoom. They still have recording sessions, but I think those were even knocked out for a while. But
yeah,
I do see them returning. That some of my friends are still playing on sessions and recording things
yeah,
and wearing masks. You know, um, but I think the Zoom songwriting has really taken off. Now I've not ventured into that, but it would be a good time if I had the inclination to try to get back into it. Um, this conversation is very easy, and I could see how that would translate into an easy co-write situation.
oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you for letting me
Well, I appreciate,
see the technology.
yeah. I appreciate everything today, and for you taking the time to share with us about your career up there in Nashville and all the. I know I just kind of touched on the surface of many of the people that you've met over the years, but you've worked hard and stayed busy and just were determined to learn a lot about the songwriting craft and the business as well. And but I guess
Yeah.
would you recommend for people in the future to, if you're really into it, you've got to move to Nashville to really get into the networks too?
Well, I could not have done it without the networks that I created.
Yeah.
It would have been impossible for me on the business end as well as the songwriting end. Um, I had to find my place and my strengths and my weaknesses. And I had to build on my weaknesses and add to my strengths too. And but I also needed to find people out there as far as co-writers
Hmm.
who were very, very strong where I was not as strong. And I had to get very, very good in certain areas where other people might have lacked something that I could bring to the table.
Hmm.
So I had to go out and search and find and study people and their works.
Yeah.
You know, one of the main things, hey, buddy, that I tried to do was study the right people.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, you can study all you want, but if you study the wrong people, you're pretty much wasting your time.
Yeah.
Now, if there was somebody out there that wanted to learn songwriting from a songwriter, of course, I would say, buddy, quit that. I would say Hank Williams. I
Yeah.
studied him, and I think everybody should study him. I think people should study Kerry Kurt Phillips, Kerry, Kurt, Kurt, Phillips. He wrote things like Almost Home, Craig Morgan, an incredible, incredible song. He wrote one called This Ain't Nothing, another Craig Morgan song. And you look at the detail that goes in to his songs. He wrote Country Boys and Girls Getting Down on the Farm and these other hits too.
Oh,
But
really?
his, yeah, overall, he is just a gifted, gifted writer. And I would also study Paul Nelson too,
Hmm.
even though that type music is not selling now. That doesn't mean it's not going to come back at some point.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you position yourself with studying really good people,
Yeah.
then you can't help but be in a better position.
Yeah. I believe that. Well, Tommy, thank you very much for this. I really do appreciate it, and I enjoyed your songwriting seminar down there so much in Natchez when I came down there a few years ago, and you do great things for the community. I believe very
Well,
much, Tommy. I appreciate that.
all right. Well, good visiting with you.
Good
You
visit
have a
with you.
good day and a blessed new year.
All right. Thank you very much, Tommy. Take care.
All right. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching The Other Side with Mike Miller. Hope you enjoyed Tommy Polk's stories about writing songs and publishing in Nashville, work involved with David Ball and has had songs on David Ball's albums. And I was really glad to have Tommy. Thank you for watching. I have a lot of other shows I hope you'll check out, and have a great day.